I didn't see what they saw because I had a lot going. At the time, he was younger than I was.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk with Mrs. Hey. Now, today's episode is going to be very, very exciting because I have with me a very dear friend. She's married. She has a very amazing life. And let me give you this backstory. The other day, my friend and I were having this conversation about how many women miss the will of God in search of Mr. Perfect. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, he has to be this way, he has to be tall, dark, handsome, and so many other reasons why many women just, we marry their perception of perfect, right? So we're having this conversation, and I thought, you know what, Vera, you have a whole lot to share because even as she was speaking, I was exploding. I was thinking, And I asked her if she doesn't mind. And then, of course, here we are today. So, Vera, welcome.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Vera Adesegun, and I run an accessories brand called Oremi Crafts. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Vera. So, the other day we were having this conversation, and then one of the things that we're talking about is how some women reject the will of God. And they will say, okay, well, I'm more educated than this person. I'm more financially stable than this person. I'm more socially exposed or socially connected than this person. And no, this cannot be the will of God for me. What do you have to say to that?
I actually have a lot to say, because in my own instance, I had crazy things that I wanted in a man. I mean, every woman grows up with fantasies, reading Mills and Bones, and all that. And they have this ideal perception of what they want in a man. But as I grew older, I realized I had to ask myself what I really wanted. And one of the things I wanted was, for me, that was a priority because I'm a Christian. I wanted a man that loves God. I also wanted a man that loves people because they say the way he treats the waitress, the gate man, is the same way he's going to treat you and your family. So I had to be clear about what I wanted in a man.
What about those men that treats the waitress very nicely, but then they come back home and treat their own spouse like rubbish?
Sure.
Is that not possible?
It's very, very possible. But, at the end of the day, the second thing that I had to realize was I needed the will of God to prevail. And allowing that will of God to prevail, I also had to put one or two mechanisms into place. E.g., I had people go spend time with me because I needed
The way you see him.
I needed them to see him from an unbiased perspective because they really had nothing at stake. I had. So in spending time, we had not just one person, a lot of persons. They were able to come back and give me feedback about what they thought about him. And guess what? All of them had the same thing to say about him.
What did they say about him?
They said he was worth going for. I was the only one that didn't think he was worth going for. But everybody else gave me a thumbs up.
Tell me, how come you did not see what they saw?
Great question again. I didn't see what they saw because at the time, he was younger than I was. And for me, I felt, I had a lot going, more than he had going at the time. So I felt that I struggled basically. But everybody had to say, don't focus on that. Focus on him as a person. We've spent time with him. We feel that the boy is good. But I didn't see it that way.
Isn't this what we were talking about? So for you, it was I'm older than him. So it cannot be the will of God. That was what you were telling yourself
At the time.
but your husband that I know and the relationship that I know that you have is amazing. You are one of the few couples that are, now maybe if I'm praying for my daughter, I'll say, oh yeah, let my daughter find this kind of man, right? So isn't that what we're talking about? So age is a factor, one of the factor in your case. For someone else, it would be finances. For another person, it would be okay, education or social standing or whatever it was. So age was your own limitation. So how did you, what made you then switch besides the fact that all these other people spoke to him? Because if you weren't still going to go for him in spite of, if you had made up your mind,
I wouldn't have.
you still wouldn't have. So what broke you?
I'm reflective, to say that at the time, just even doing one of my degrees, I realized that I was in a space with people that had PhDs, had 5 degrees, but guess what? They were not mature. Their sense of reasoning, their sense of how they did their things, their value system was contrary to mine. And I started processing, that was even before I met him. I started processing early that, what makes a man, really? What makes a man worth marrying? That was before I met him. And I realized that he was not going to be president on things like education. It's not to say it was easy for me, but those are my thought process even before I met him, to say, what makes a man a man? Hard work.
Yeah.
What is he willing to do for his family when the chips are down? Because I saw that with my parents. I saw a lot of ills that I didn't want to happen to me. So I had my own mini criteria. It's not to say, like I said, it was really easy, but at the end of the day, I remember his sister calling me to say, you know what? At this point, this guy is good. I can attest to it, but Vera, you need to choose between faith and anything else. And I decided to choose faith. And I'm glad today I chose faith.
So, and I'm thinking maybe someone is listening and then the person has, the person is probably in your present situation, probably married. I'm actually even thinking by myself, maybe as a Yoruba woman, of all the things, all the challenges one can face, married to a younger man. How, in the deep Yoruba culture, you're supposed to call your in-laws, even the younger ones, auntie, and all of that. How do you relate with his friends? Were issues with his own friends? How do they, did they accord you the respect just, it's kind of, it can become like in a society, in this African society. I know that, in the West, just a no-brainer. It is what it is. It's probably never an issue for them. But how did you navigate that? Was that an issue for you? And how did you navigate it? How do you relate with his friends, with family? Do they even know that he's younger?
A lot of them know. Okay. But like I said, one of the best things that I saw in my husband before I married him was his high level of maturity. I couldn't have married someone with a PhD with less maturity. Choose your...
Also, not about how educated. Maturity is not dependent on education.
You can't buy it in the market. And then coming to your question, my sister-in-law came to stay with us about 3 months into marriage. Okay. And of course, she's far younger than even him, not to talk of me. And she was like, you know how the Yoruba, you have to call me pet name, and my husband, that was, for me, that was so mind-blowing. That was an experience that made me respect him more. We were all in the kitchen and he said to her, Are you here as a friend or you are here as a sister-in-law? Because my home has no space for a sister-in-law. I didn't want to speak. He spoke. And right there and then, she had to decide which side of the divide she wanted to be at. He made her understand that calling you this societal name that you want, is that really what you want? Would that make you happy? Would that boost your ego and leave you flat? I didn't have to speak. He spoke it all. And right there and then, she had to decide which side she wanted to be on. And that was the end of the discussion. I didn't have to lift up a finger. I didn't have to fight for myself. He did all the fighting. And that reinforced to me that I had made the right decision to marry this man. I couldn't have asked for better. So I think it's the man knowing who he is and knowing who he wants to marry.
So, being older does not make a marriageable man. It's the level of maturity.
Absolutely.
So you can be as old as Methuselah and you have the maturity of a 5-year-old.
Absolutely.
You are not a man that is ready to be married.
Yeah. Because I saw them. I saw them everywhere. They were everywhere. But I've seen it's not to also say that there hasn't been some level of challenges along the way, because you asked the question, in terms of how do I relate with his family? How do I relate with his friends? I tell people that the power that God has given us as women is the ability to choose.
Wow.
When the Bible talks about that women have to submit to their husbands, we get to choose now
I was coming to
who you submit to.
Being married to a younger Yoruba man, how Yoruba men put respect on their head. Was submission easy for you? Or because you're married to someone younger, we are on the same level, submission is not an issue? Was submission easy? Is it something?
My husband made it so easy. I can't. My husband is like a friend. He's like somebody I love gisting with. I love because
I know you too.
we do all the, initially I thought it was going to be an issue. And that's where fear came in. I was afraid that the age disparity was going to be a huge challenge for me. I felt like the level of finances was going to be a huge challenge for me. Mind you, my husband, when I broached that to him in terms of finances, he said to me at the time, he said, "You see this, my small money, I'm going to use it and feed you." He said to me, "I don't want to know how much you have. You see this, I don't want to mention." He said, "This small money that I'm earning legally is what I'm going to use to feed you." And over time, God is so incredible. But when the Bible says, when a man finds a woman, he obtains favor. Absolutely. My husband has obtained favor.
Amazing.
It's incredible that when you marry the right person, I don't want our viewers to feel like it was easy. But one thing I know is that courage is not the absence of fear. It's doing it in spite of the fear. It's doing it in spite of, you're afraid, but you're still going to do it.
That's very.
And my own doing, I didn't just do it out of impulse. Like I said, don't forget that I'd gotten people to spend time with him. I had tried to really know who's this person. In fact, there was a day I was in my house. He just surprised me and said, "I'm at your gate." He too was also doing his finding. He wanted to know where I live, how my house is, if I'm a neat person. He also did his own finding. So people also need to do some level of findings.
So you see, you've touched on something else, finances, right? So how women, we gauge again the man we want to marry. No, this one can't take care of me. No, he cannot buy the kind of Brazilian wig I will wear. He cannot take me on the many vacations that I see people on social media going for. I can't marry this one. No, because we are judging him based on what he has now, forgetting also what God promised this man when they find the right one. So please, can you just touch on that? Yes, she said it wasn't easy. Did you ever, have second thought, like, you know what, did I even make a mistake? Were things that tough, because I heard someone say, I remember when I was single, that my life was much better. And then I got married, to this man who is struggling. And now we are struggling together. Even the little I'm having, is not even out. So did you ever struggle? Or once you got married, everything just started looking up for your husband? How? Can you just run us through?
The truth is, everything started working out when I married my husband. I can tell you at the beginning, I was earning a lot more. My business was really doing well. He was working a 9 to 5. His salary, I was saying, when he said to me, I'm going to feed you with that and all that. And then we started the journey. But I can tell you that in no time, my husband's salary became more than my business money. His workplace started sending him out of the country on travels. I really did not have my money was not inside, and that's where that scripture came to reality for me, because he found me and he was sincere about what that finding was about. I want to believe that God increased his pocket, and then we've just seen ourselves just rising, But one thing I must say is that when I married my husband can spend, though. My can spend for Africa. And he's someone that loves giving. Has it, he gives it. But me, I didn't like that. Not because it was bad, but I kept telling him, you know what? As much as you love people, you need to love your family, or you need to love me, or don't spend for the world, and don't be, foolish and all that. And that was a huge challenge for us. So what did we do? I started being the custodian of all the money. I started kicking it. And then if there's a need for finances, family, groceries, whatever, we come together and discuss it.
You with
Absolutely.
his money.
Absolutely.
And you did justice to that.
Because I was actually tempted to be like, you know what, let me, how we went, but over time I saw him change. I saw him be more considerate about his spending habit. I saw him involve me in the spending, so we don't have a joint account up till tomorrow, but I know the monies that are going out and I know what is coming in. He buys something, he sends me the receipts, so I'm in the know of things that are going on,
And vice versa. You
absolutely don't spend without absolutely as well. So it helped our finances to stay stable.
Okay, now what would you say to someone who possibly earns more than her husband, and because she earns more, she's not at liberty to maybe buy whatever she wants to buy, maybe married to an insecure man, a man who sees his wife as competition as opposed to, his partner. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
What do you say to them? How should they, or maybe I should paint you a scenario to explain. So I know you heard, maybe you were probably the one sharing the story of a woman who was married to someone who is insecure, and so she earns more than this man, and she could not openly say, see, I have money, let's buy this land. So she went on, bought the property, and made the man start to rent him. The man could not afford to own his own property. She could afford, and she was open to sharing. But that sharing could come problem in the marriage. So instead of sharing with him, she kept her money to herself. What do you say? Is that even right? Is it right for a woman who earns more, who is more financially independent, to keep everything to herself? Like, okay, if I tell him trouble, let me just keep it. What is the wisdom you want to share with that kind of person?
It's a tough one. Oh, definitely a very tough one. But you see, that's why for me, when the foundation is faulty, the Bible says, "What can the righteous do?" You know, we, like I said, also, we as women, we have the power to choose our submission, who we want to submit to. Yep. But at this point now, you've chosen. I mean, you can't get out.
Position as the name.
As the need. What I will say is, there are some certain things we do, whichever gender, to keep the peace. Whatever it takes to keep the peace at home is what you will do. I can't say either or. I would just say that whatever it takes to keep, because I mean, the Proverbs 31 woman is classified as a wise woman. Yes, she was. In the things she did. We as women need to be wise. We've heard of instances where the woman just, the man bought the property, he put Mr. and Mrs., and then now he's late, and then the family come for the property. Unfortunately, he did not put Mr. and Mrs. Tunde and Mr. or Mrs. The full names were not there. And now she's out of the house. So wisdom is profitable. Whatever it takes for the home, for the marriage to be at peace, a wise woman will find that path. If you know that your husband is insecure, you need to do things that will not bring that focus out. Because if it does, it's going to be a problem for the home. And God forbid, taking it out on the kids as well. So anything that you know that you can apply in terms of wisdom, I think it's needed.
You said something. You said the women have the power of choice. We choose who we would submit to. And I think that's the greatest choice, because once you've chosen,
It's the greatest power that we have.
yes. Once you've chosen, you live with your choice. Especially as Christians, you live with your choice. You know that this is whether your choice is your choice or God's will for you, we live with it. So, what do we tell our daughters? When should we start telling them about the choice? This choice that they would eventually all make, this marriage choice. What should we tell them? What kind of man should they look out for? I mean, am I telling my daughter, he must be very well educated, he must be financially stable, he must come from this kind of family? What should I tell my daughter? What should my daughter be looking out for? And when should I start telling my daughter?
2 questions at once. Yeah. I think first off, for me, I will tell my daughter she attracts who she is. I don't think I will tell my daughter about him, first of all. I will tell her about herself.
Who are you?
Because she attracts
Alike.
absolutely. Who you are is what will bring what and what to you. So if you are confident in yourself as a woman, if you know what you want, remember at the beginning of this discourse, I said, I knew what I wanted.
Right.
In fact, I wanted a man that was taller than me because I'm the shortest in my whole family. I wanted a man that his feet are bigger than mine. Chris Pizzo.
Interesting.
So that I wear his shoes just for fun. I wear his shirts and roll them up. Stupid things. And God granted her request. He did. He's not extremely tall, but he's taller than me, which is a answered prayer.
All in all.
So I will tell my daughter that you, first of all, you need to work on yourself. I need you to be the best version of yourself. Because when you are, you will make the right choices, not the choices that the society is asking you to make. Because the society is constantly speaking into our ears. But when you're confident in yourself, you know who you are, you will begin to understand what you need. Because when we were getting married, or people that have gotten married, they usually say if they were quiet, they were looking for someone that was a chatterbox so that they can complement each other. So when you know yourself, you will know what you want to attract to yourself. You will know that you're quiet, you don't want quiet. You want someone that is at least a little bit chatty, and if you're chatty, you want someone that will tame you down a bit, so that is exactly what I'll tell my daughter. Because at the end of the day, you need to have your values. And your values have to be so solid that they counter what the society is saying. The society is saying, go for tall, go for rich. He has to have this, he has to have that. But they forget to tell you that growth is a process. And that you being in his life. I mean, then my husband came into my life. I thought my business was booming. It wasn't. When he came, I can tell you for a fact that I had a customer that wanted me to do something. And I didn't have the idea. And I was almost tempted to be like, I can't do this thing. I want to give it up. And then my husband just walked in. He didn't say much. He just walked in and said, you know what? I think you should find out how to do this thing, because just find out how to do it too. And he walked out. And I took those words. It wasn't much, but I took those words. I put myself into learning that thing. And that's how the flip-flop started.
Oh, yeah?
And we've sold almost 10,000 pieces. Just because my husband came, he said a word and he exited. And I took those words literally, and boom. And who is the beneficiary? It's him.
Your money.
He's beneficial of the both are anyway. But if he didn't say the word, if I didn't take it, I don't know.
Probably doing the same thing you were doing back.
Absolutely. So there's a place I tell people where God works, but there's a place we too need to work. We cannot do God's job, and neither can God do our job.
What we can do.
My own job was to get people to spend time with Him, use my mini intellect and all that. But God had the final say. And I also want to say, nobody should what you desire, your desires are valid. What was I asking for? A man that was taller than me. I wanted to wear his.
You're asking for mundane thing, yes. You're really asking for deep things like character, like. But you didn't say that.
As I was asking God for a man, a mature man. I was not specific on age. I just wanted a man that was mature. I didn't want a man that will see me as a competition. I didn't want a man that would treat the gate man nasty. Because I understood that if he did that, he would do the same thing. It was just a matter of time. Because I'm sure you know this. They always say that the signs are always there.
Absolutely.
Except you refuse to see them. The signs are always there. The testament to the marriage is the signs were there.
Always.
You don't say, you didn't get into the marriage and say, oh, I didn't see it.
No,
they were always there.
Yeah. That was amazing. That's a very, very beautiful story you shared.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that, your story would inspire someone who's at a crossroad right now and you're trying to make just one decision, and then maybe the only thing stopping that is the decision to either marry someone they are older than, someone they earn more than, and all of these things that we've spoken about. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me.
In our next conversation, we are going to be delving deeper. We're going to be talking something that I believe that you can relate with as well, by virtue of the fact that you speak to women. There are so many women who see your marriage as fantasy. They cannot relate. And we are empathetic towards those people. So we need to say a word or two to them. Even though they are struggling in marriage now, you need to speak hope and speak life into their marriages. So in our next conversation, we'll be talking to those set of women. How does that sound? Fantastic.